What the hell do you think you're doing? Ma'am, I warned you. Those were the only words Isaiah Turner said the morning everything in Willow Creek changed. Isaiah had lived on the same stretch of Tennessee farmland his entire life. 5 acres of rolling grass, an old tobacco barn his grandfather built by hand in 1956, and a gravel path that wound from his porch down toward the creek line. He didn't need much. After 2 decades working at the county utility department, all he wanted was quiet evenings, warm cornbread, and the soft hum of cicadas at sunset. His barn wasn't fancy. It wasn't modern. It didn't match the new luxury farmhouse aesthetic the HOA preached in flyers. But it was his family's. And one thing Isaiah never tolerated was disrespect toward his legacy. Unfortunately for him, someone was about to test that. Her name was Karen Whittemore, and she'd recently been elected HOA president of Willow Creek Estates, a neighborhood carved out by developers who thought farmland looked better once you replaced hay with Instagram-ready lawns. Karen was the kind of woman who introduced herself with a rule book, the kind who thought a clipboard made her mayor, the kind who believed every problem could be solved with a fine. But she had one fatal flaw. She didn't do her homework. Isaiah first met Karen on a humid Thursday morning. She marched down his long driveway in wedge heels, completely unsuited for gravel, waving a pamphlet that read, "Willow Creek, a vision for elevated living." "Good morning," she chirped with a tight smile. "I'm the HOA president and I wanted to discuss a concern." Isaiah wiped sweat from his brow. "What concern?" She pointed at the barn. "That structure, it's outdated, rustic, very off-brand for our community's aesthetic profile." "It's a barn, ma'am," he said flatly. "Barns look like barns." Karen ignored that. "I'm afraid it must be brought up to code, or removed entirely. It violates Section Form 7 of the HOA covenant." Isaiah let out a breath. "Ma'am, my property is not in the HOA." Karen blinked rapidly like her brain needed time to load. "Well, it sits near the HOA. It faces the HOA, so its appearance affects HOA value." "No, it doesn't." His voice was calm, but with an edge. "This barn was here 70 years before your HOA existed." She kept smiling, but her jaw twitched. "Well, we'll see about that." Isaiah said nothing, but he knew trouble when he saw it. The situation escalated faster than Tennessee lightning. On a Monday morning in late July, Isaiah woke to the sound of heavy machinery, bulldozers, engines roaring, gravel crunching. He grabbed his boots, stepped outside, and froze mid-stride. A construction crew, hired by Karen, was lined up at the edge of his driveway, and behind them sat a yellow bulldozer, idling loudly. Karen strutted forward in oversized sunglasses and a sun hat, like she was starring in her own reality show. "Good morning, Isaiah," she called. "We're starting the removal." He stared at her. "The what?" "The barn demolition," she said cheerfully. "I filed a complaint with the county about unsafe structures, and since you did not comply with HOA requests—" "I'm not in your HOA." "Well, we consider you an affiliate property." "No, ma'am," his voice dropped. "You're trespassing." She waved at the workers. "Boys, get ready to break ground." They moved toward the barn. Isaiah stepped between them and the structure. "You go any farther," he said, "and you'll regret it." Karen scoffed. "What are you going to do? Intimidate us? Please. This is official HOA business." "It's illegal," he said calmly. "And I warned you." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Call whoever you want. The barn is coming down." She had no idea she'd already lost. Isaiah walked back to his porch, straight to an old wooden chest. Inside were documents passed down through generations. Original land deed, 1948. Boundary plat. Easement agreements. Tax records. And one very important paper. The emergency access right-of-way agreement. Decades ago, when the county installed underground utility lines and emergency drainage channels, they designated his property as a protected emergency right-of-way. In simple terms, no one could build, dig, alter, or destroy anything on his land without county authorization, especially not near the barn. And the kicker: if anyone attempted unauthorized construction, the county sheriff had legal authority to shut it down immediately. Isaiah grabbed his phone. Sheriff Dalton was a no-nonsense man who'd known Isaiah for years. When he pulled up, the bulldozer was inches from the barn. Karen marched toward him. "Sheriff, thank goodness you're here. This man is interfering with official HOA activity." The sheriff raised a hand. Ma'am, please step back. Arrest him, she demanded. He threatened my workers. Isaiah handed the sheriff the emergency right-of-way documents. Dalton scanned them, nodded, and exhaled deeply. Karen, you need to stop this immediately. She blinked. What? Why? This barn sits on protected emergency access land. The county designated it in 1987. It cannot be touched without a court order. That can't be true. She snapped. I filed my own paperwork. Dalton raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, HOA documentation doesn't override county infrastructure law. She stuttered. But the barn is ugly. That's not a crime. Karen tried again. It lowers property value. Dalton stepped closer. Ma'am, if that bulldozer moves another inch, I'll have to cite you for trespassing and obstruction of county easement rights. The workers quietly shut off their engines. Karen's face twisted. This isn't fair. I'm trying to beautify the neighborhood. Isaiah folded his arms. I told you. You're on my land, and the county says you can't touch a thing. The sheriff turned to her crew. Pack it up, all of you. Karen didn't go down quietly. 2 days later, she held an emergency HOA meeting and voted, with only her own approval, to file complaints against Isaiah for property neglect, harboring unsafe structures, lowering HOA aesthetics, failing to comply with HOA directives. But when she submitted the complaints, the county clerk recognized Isaiah's parcel number and opened his file. The clerk called her back personally. Ma'am, she said, you have no jurisdiction. This land predates your HOA by 50 years, and the barn sits on a protected right-of-way. Karen shrieked. Well, then change it. We cannot. Why not? Because, the clerk said calmly, it protects emergency flood drainage and buried county utility lines. Removing that barn or disturbing that land could cause thousands of dollars in damage. Or worse. Karen went silent. Then the accountant added, and your bulldozer crew already disturbed soil too close to the conduit line. You may be liable for that damage. Karen nearly dropped her phone. A week later, a county infrastructure inspector named Warren Tate visited Isaiah. He walked the property, took photos, checked soil disturbance, and traced the underground emergency line route. Then he shook his head. Isaiah, I'm afraid your HOA neighbor messed up badly. Karen, who had followed him onto the land, gasped. Messed up? How? What damage? Warren pointed to the disturbed soil. Your bulldozer dug too close to the main relief conduit. If the ground had shifted another foot, you could have ruptured a pressure line. Karen's eyes widened. A rupture? That sounds expensive. It is, Warren said, and dangerous. You would have caused a flood, property loss, and been liable for full damages. She went pale. Warren continued, We're filing a formal citation, and the HOA will be responsible for restoration costs. Karen nearly fainted. The HOA? That's thousands of dollars. Warren didn't blink. You should have checked county records. The emergency right-of-way takes priority over any HOA documents. Isaiah watched her crumble. He didn't smile. He just stood tall, the way his father taught him. When the citation invoice arrived at the HOA board meeting, the room erupted. Board member number 1. Karen, what have you done? Board member number 2. You used HOA funds for illegal construction. Board member number 3. You ignored county law. Board member number 4. You wrote complaints against someone who's not even in the HOA. Karen tried to defend herself. I was protecting our community standard. The treasurer slapped down the bill. You put us 14s into $700 in fines and property restoration charges. Voices exploded around the room. You abused your power. You cost us money. You targeted a man who didn't bother anyone. You faked authority you didn't have. A vote was called. It took less than 30 seconds. Karen was removed as HOA president, fined personally, forbidden from contacting Isaiah. I ordered to apologize in writing. She'd required to attend a county property law seminar. She stormed out, red-faced, humiliated. Karen still believed she could fight back. She tried appealing the county ruling, denied. She tried hiring a lawyer. He dropped her after reading the easement papers. She tried blaming the bulldozer crew. They provided text showing she gave the illegal orders. Her final attempt was posting in the neighborhood Facebook group, calling Isaiah unstable and aggressive. The sheriff made her delete it and issued a written warning for harassment. Then came the last blow. A county letter stating that any further violation of the emergency right-of-way would result in criminal charges, property liens, and possible jail time. The same evening, a moving truck arrived. Karen left Willow Creek quietly, the first quiet thing she'd ever done. Isaiah stood outside at sunset, leaning against the old barn wall. The sky glowed orange over Tennessee hills. For the first time in months, there were no bulldozers, no shouting, no surprise inspections, just stillness. His neighbor from across the creek walked up. "Isaiah," he said, "you handled that better than anyone else could have." Isaiah shrugged. "I just stood my ground." The man nodded. "Well, the whole community's grateful. She's been ruling this place like a queen." Isaiah chuckled softly. "Queens lose their crowns sometimes." He ran a hand along the barn door, the same door his grandfather carved initials into nearly 70 years ago. The barn wasn't just a structure. It was history, family, heritage, legacy. And thanks to a forgotten line on an old county document, it was protected forever. Isaiah whispered, "This barn's not going anywhere. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not as long as a Turner stood on this land. If you believe people who abuse power should always face consequences, then smash that like button and subscribe to Mr. Miezah Stories, because justice hits different when truth comes out."